शोरे महीनों सुनकर तुझ तक मैं दबाया, शोरे महीनों सुनकर तुझ तक मैं दबाया।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today we will begin the summary of Al-Juz al-Thani Ashara, the 12th Juz in the Holy Quran. We will continue with Surah Yunus. This Juz begins with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allah's name I begin with, the most gracious, the most merciful. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا وَيَعْلَمُ مُسْتَقَرَّهَا وَمُسْتَوْدَعَهَا كُلٌّ فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the provision for every living creature on earth is in the control and responsibility of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in complete and full control of everyone's rizq. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says that He knows their places of residence. This means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the knowledge of whether someone is still in his mother's womb or whether they are residing on earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also knows whether they are in their homes or they are in their graves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kullun fi kitabim mubin. All of this is in the book, and the book, the clear book which is mentioned, the Mufassirun say that this refers to the Lawh Mahfuz, the sacred tablet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all of these things, everyone's provision, where everyone is staying at the time, where they are transitioning to, whether they are moving to another place or whether they're going to their graves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this is all in the Lawh Mahfuz, the sacred tablet on which the taqdeer, the destiny, is written for every single creature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further said that the purpose of the universe, the purpose for the entire creation is to test the good and evil of the human. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains that humankind is so selfish that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants someone with His bounties and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses someone, then they are not thankful, they do not express their gratitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when the blessing is snatched from them, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes any blessing from them, then they become hopeless and ungrateful. In the same way, if a blessing comes to them after suffering, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَاهُ نَعْمَاهَا بَعْدَ ضَرَّاءَ مَسَّتْهُ لَيَقُولَنَّ ذَهَبَ السَّيِّئَاتُ عَنِّي إِنَّهُ لَفَرِحٌ فَخُورٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when any blessing comes to them, after they face any harm, after they face any hardship and suffer, then they become arrogant and they begin to boast. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that only those who remain patient and those who are righteous in every situation, they are the ones who are forgiven and they are the ones who are given great reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says for the consolation of His beloved Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam that the disbelievers, they make various orders and requests, such as, why doesn't any treasure be sent down to you? Or they ask that why an angel has not come down to you to support you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells His beloved Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam to not feel bad about these requests and demands that these disbelievers ask from you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him that your task, your duty is simply to warn the people of the punishment, the divine punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions in this chapter, He says, أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افْتَرَاهُ قُلْ فَأْتُوا بِعَشْرِ سُوَرٍ مِثْلِهِ مُفْتَرَيَاتٍ وَادْعُوا مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses those who deny the word of the Holy Quran, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses them and challenges them to unite all of their supporters and come up with 10 chapters like the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges them that if you deny and you don't believe that this is indeed the kalam, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then try and make something like it. And definitely no one will ever be able to bring a kalam, bring any speech like the speech of the Holy Quran. In the 23rd verse of the chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who believe and do good deeds and humble themselves before their Lord, they will be given paradise and they will be in Jannah, and they will be given the bounties of Jannah forever. Then from verse 25, the situation of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and his qawm is mentioned. And later in the chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He ordered Sayyidina Nuh, His beloved messenger alayhi salam, to build the ark, to build a big ship, and how his qawm who rejects him and doesn't believe in the message that he brings to them, they will be given punishment, they will be in azab. And through this ark, Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and his companions, those who believe, they will be saved. Then when Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam began making the ark, the leaders of the disbelieving nations, when they passed by, Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam then told those disbelievers that the time is coming when you will be mocked and you will be laughed at, and a disgraceful and shameful punishment is coming towards you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا وَفَارَتَّ النُّورِ قُلْ نَحْمِلْ فِيهَا مِنْ كُلٍّ زَوْجَيْنِ اثْنَيْنِ وَأَهْلَكَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَبَقَ عَلَيْهِ الْقَوْلُ وَمَنْ آمَنَ وَمَا آمَنَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when our command comes and when the oven was boiled, this was an indication to Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam that when the oven is boiled, then Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam should begin escaping. He should go on the ship with his family and those who believe, and he should escape the azab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this oven boiling, the Mufassirun mentioned that this either refers to the oven that Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam inherited from Sayyidah Hawa radiyallahu ta'ala anha, or this oven refers to the ground, and when the ground begins to boil up, then Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and those who accepted him and those who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they all aborted the ship, made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ship then began carrying them in waves that were big as mountains. Then Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam saw his son standing apart and told him, he called out to him, "O son, get in the ship with us and don't be with the disbelievers." Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam told him that I will go to a mountain that will save me from the water, that will save me from this storm. He said that today there is no savior except the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and except on whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy. Then the wave came between them and drowned his son. Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam's son had drowned in the storm. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to stop the ship after the storm had ended. And then Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that my son is from my family and your promise is true that my family will be saved. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself commanded Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam to board the ship with his family so that his family can be saved. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala drown his son? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then said, "Ya Nuhu, innahu laysa min ahlik, innahu amalun ghayru salihin, fala tas'alni ma laysa laka bihi ilm." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told his messenger alayhi salam that he is not one of your people, he is not from your family, his actions are not good, and do not ask about which you do not know the reality of. Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam then asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness and his mercy. Then after the storm had completely stopped, the believers, the companions, and Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam himself descended in peace. Then from verse 50, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the nation of Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam, who were known as the Ad. Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam invited them towards the Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but these people, they rejected the invitation and they did not believe. Instead, they mocked and they ridiculed Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam. They said that some of our gods have made you a crazy person. Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam then said that I make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all of you a witness that I am bari, I am completely free and not a part of your polytheism. Then in verse 58, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the azab, the punishment of these people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأُتْبِعُوا فِي هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا لَعْنَةً وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَلَا إِنَّ عَادًا كَفَرُوا رَبَّهُمْ أَلَا بُعْدًا لِعَادٍ قَوْمِ هُودٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that because of their disbelief and because of them denying the signs and messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have deserved the curse in this world and in the hereafter. Furthermore, in verse 61, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the situation of Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam and his qawm. It was previously mentioned how Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam presented a miracle to his people, which was the camel known as the Naqatullah, the camel of Allah. And Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam told his people, told his nation to leave this camel free to graze and do not hurt it, otherwise the punishment will come to you. His qawm didn't obey the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they cut off the camel's feet. Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam then warned them and told them that enjoy your homes, enjoy your luxurious lives for only 3 more days, and then after that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will surely send the punishment upon you. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent his azab in the shape of a thunderstorm which struck them and overtook them. They then fell down on their knees inside of their homes, and only Sayyidina Salih alayhi salam and those who believed in him, those who accepted an iman, only they escaped and were safe from the azab. Then from verse 69 it is mentioned how the angels came down to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam in human form, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he invited them because he was very sincere and kind to guests. Then when he found out that they were angels, the angels gave him good news how he will have a child. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam's blessed wife, who was standing right beside him, she began to smile and say, "We are both old, how will we have children at this age?" The angels replied and said, أَتَعْجَبِينَ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ رَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ عَلَيْكُمْ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ إِنَّهُ حَمِيدٌ مَجِيدٌ. The angels, O family of Ibrahim, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Why are you surprised at the power and at the hukm of Allah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do anything He wants. If He wants to give you a child while you are at this old age, it is possible, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to do so. Then from verse 77, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the nation of Sayyidina Lut alayhi salam and how the angels descended and came down to take account of their evil deeds. Sayyidina Lut alayhi salam began to worry, and the angels came down and they told him that we are the angels of Allah, we are the angels of your Lord, and you will not be harmed by the disbelievers. Those who reject you, they cannot cause any harm to you. And the angels also told him that when the last part of the night comes, meaning towards the end of the night, you and your family, those who have accepted the truth, you guys should escape without paying any attention to the nation. And then definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down His punishment in the morning to punish those who have rejected and disbelieved in you. The azab came in such a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala flipped the entire town upside down, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously poured and showered rocks upon the people. Then in verse 84, the nation of Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam is mentioned, who were known as the Madian. The people of Madian, they committed many crimes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this and how Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam advised them, but it had no effect on them, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also destroyed them and sent His azab to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how He punished those who rejected and those who did wrong, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam and those who accepted the truth. Then in verse 96, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that He gave Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam many miracles, and He gave him the ability to show many mu'jizat to his nation. Then in verse 106, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ شَقُوا فَفِي النَّارِ لَهُمْ فِيهَا زَفِيرٌ وَشَهِيقٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this verse and in the next verse, He mentions 2 types of people. The first people mentioned are the misfortunate ones, those who are not gifted with iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they will be given Jahannam, they will be given hell in which they will abide forever. And the second group of people, وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ سُعِدُوا فَفِي الْجَنَّةِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا مَا دَامَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ رَبُّكَ عَطَاءً غَيْرَ مَجْزُوزٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the fortunate ones, those who believe, they will be given Jannat, they will be given paradise in which they will abide forever, and they will have countless blessings by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Furthermore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the people to abide by the rules of the religion set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to avoid associating with the wrongdoers, with the sinners. And He said that the end result of those who associate with the wrongdoers is the same result, the same ending that will be given to those sinners. In verse 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ طَرَفَيِ النَّهَارِ وَزُلَفًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to establish the salah in both parts of the day, meaning in the daytime and in the evening. Establish salah and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَزُلَفًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. This is a specific part of the night, which is earlier in the night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding to especially worship Him and establish the salah in this part of the night. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. That the good deeds, they erase all of the bad deeds. ذَلِكَ ذِكْرَى لِلذَّاكِرِينَ. This is a reminder, this is an advice for those who accept the advice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later mentions that He has narrated all of these stories and all of this news about the previous Anbiya to satisfy your heart and to give you comfort. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has narrated and mentioned these things as an advice and guidance for those who believe. Also, there are proofs and strong evidences for the religion and for the pillars of the religion and belief that are Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in the messengerhood, the system of Risala and Nabuwwah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set, and believing in the final day and the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then in the final verse of this chapter, He says that the ghaib, the unseen in the skies and in the land, is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the knowledge, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in full control of all of these things that are unseen by the human beings, and everything is to return to Him. You worship Him, you rely upon Him, and وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. And your Lord is not unaware of what you all do, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and He is aware of all of our deeds. We are now complete with Surah Yunus. Now we will begin the next chapter of the Holy Quran, which is known as Surah Yusuf. This chapter was revealed in Makkah al-Mukarramah, and it consists of 111 verses. This chapter mentions the stories in much detail about Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, and the Quran has described these incidents and these narrations of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam as a very beautiful story. The first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this chapter is the dream that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذْ قَالَ يُوسُفُ لِأَبِيهِ يَا أَبَتِ إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam told his blessed father, Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam, about the dream that he saw. He says that he saw the sun, the moon, and he saw 11 stars all doing sajda, prostrating to him. Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam then told his son Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam not to tell his other brothers about this dream because they will become jealous. Then after some time, his brothers, they noticed that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam had more of a connection with their father, and out of this jealousy they went and threw him in a deep well. And when they returned, they told their father that Yusuf had been eaten by a wolf. While Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam remained in that deep well, eventually after suffering and suffering, he arrived in Egypt as a slave. Some people found him and they sold him to the Aziz of Egypt, who had a lot of authority. He was known as the minister in Egypt, in Misr. Then they decided, the minister, the Aziz of Egypt, and his wife, they decided to keep Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and adopt him. Then when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam grew older, the wife of the minister, Zulaykha, she became very attracted to the beauty of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, and out of this attraction, she attempted to commit an evil act, an unlawful act with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. So she approached him, but Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam backed off. He backed away. Then Zulaykha, she ran towards him and then grabbed him from behind and ripped his shirt. Then in the meantime, her husband arrived and saw this. He became very disappointed by seeing this, but Zulaykha, she blamed Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. she put all the blame and say that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was trying to do this with me, and therefore Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was imprisoned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this woman intends to commit a sin, and he, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, intends to avoid her. The proof of this is mentioned in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن كَانَ قَمِيسُهُ قُدَّ مِن قُبُلٍ فَصَدَقَتْ وَهُوَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That if the shirt had been ripped from the front, then indeed she is true. Then Zulaykha is truthful, and Yusuf is from the liars. وَإِن كَانَ قَمِيسُهُ قُدَّ مِن دُبُرٍ فَكَذَبَتْ وَهُوَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. That if this shirt is ripped from the back, then she is a liar, and Yusuf is from the truthful. And indeed the shirt was ripped from the behind, therefore Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam is truthful and Zulaykha had lied. But still they did not believe this, and out of the blame put on Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, he was still put into prison. Then after all of this, the women in the town, they began to make fun of Zulaykha as to how she could attempt to commit and do something by a young slave. The woman, they made fun of her, they mocked her for this. Then Zulaykha, she tried to explain to them, and she invited and called all of these women to her. She gave them a knife and gave them some fruit to cut. And then suddenly she brought out Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and made him, and had all of the women look at the beauty of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. The Holy Quran mentions that when they saw Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam as they were cutting the fruit, وَقَطَّعْنَا أَيْدِيَهُنَّ وَقُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these women, they cut their own hands, they began cutting their own fingers, and they said, Subhanallah, they said, glory be to Allah, this is not a human. They said that this beauty cannot be the beauty of a human being, rather it is a noble angel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Zulaykha was successful in proving to them that she was not crazy for being seduced by the beauty of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. She said that this is the beauty of which you used to reproach and mock me for. After seeing how the women were reacting to the beauty of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam said, "O Allah, it is better for me to be imprisoned than to fall into this sin, and by your grace I have been saved from the conspiracy of these women." When Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was thrown into prison, two prisoners came to them and told Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam about their dreams. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam explained to them the ta'bir, the interpretation of their dreams. He told them that one of you will become a companion of the king and you will serve him wine. The other one, you will be given the death penalty, you will be hung to death, and the birds will eat from your meat. When Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam gave these people this ta'bir, this interpretation of their dreams, it turned out that this is exactly what had happened. One of them had become free and he became a companion of the king in his court, and he would serve him wine, and the other one was sentenced to death and the birds ate from his meat. Then later the king of Egypt, he saw a very unusual dream. He says that he saw 7 healthy cows eating 7 lean and skinny cows, and he also saw 7 corns that were fully ready, and he saw 7 corns that were dry. So he asked the intellectuals of his court, the people that were close to him, to interpret this dream for him, but they couldn't interpret, they couldn't figure out what exactly this unusual dream meant. Then that person who was also in prison with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and now was serving the king wine, he remembered that Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam was in prison with me, and he was a very pious person. He was an expert in interpreting dreams and giving a proper meaning to what those dreams indicate to. When the king heard about this, he went to Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam to get a valid interpretation for his dream. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam then explained to him that this dream means that for 7 years the situation will be very good and people would have proper needs and the living goods in order to live their proper lives, meaning the crops will grow fine and everything will be good for a healthy society. But then for 7 years, there will be struggles and there will be a shortage and lack of resources and goods. Therefore, you must preserve the production and everything that you are producing in these 7 years, so that when the 7 years of struggle and shortage in resources comes, then you are ready and prepared for it, and you already have the things that are necessary and the things that are needed for a healthy society. We are now complete with the summary of the 12th juz in the Holy Quran. Inshallah, tomorrow we will continue with Surah Yusuf, and we will complete this chapter tomorrow, inshallah.